In this lesson, I'm going to introduce you in how to form and decline the present participles. Now, since it's a present participle, remember participles are those verbal adjectives that end in ing in English, but we can translate as relative clauses in Greek. So, since it's a present participle, we're going to form it off the present stem. So, for luo, they're going to be formed off of this lu stem. And as you can guess, the present participles will also have, there will be contract verbs. And since they're present participles, we're going to have both active forms and middle passive forms. The middle and passive are going to be identical. So you're going to have to learn two forms for the present participles. Now the easiest place to start is going to be the present active participle of aimi, to be. So this is really being. And what I want you to remember is that this present active participle, all present active participles, are first, third adjectives. They're first, third adjectives, and as with the first, third adjective, the first declension is going to be our feminine. So let's take a look at that first, although here I'm going to introduce you first to the nominative singular. And the nominative singular of present active participles are on, masculine, usa, feminine, and on, neuter. So on, usa, on. Remember that. So our feminines, this usa, is going to decline like thalassa. So usa, uses, use, usan. And then in the plural, usai, uson, usais, usas. So these endings you already know. They are first declension endings. Nothing new there. All you need to know is this stem, us. Once you've got that, add on those first declension endings, and you're good to go. Now, the masculine and neuter, the third declension part of this, the stem is going to come from our neuter, on, but there's actually a tau hidden in there. So if we look at the masculine, on, ontos, onti, onta, perfectly normal third declension endings. And in the plural, ontes, onton, usin, and what's going on here is we get ont, sin, there's our stem, plus our sin. And remember we've had, like with geron, this has happened before, where this collection of things, there's compensatory lengthening, and we get usin. And ontas. So on, ontos, onti, onta, ontes, onton, usin, ontas. Remember this. And in the neuter, on, ontos, onti, on. Same old rule. And then the same rule for neuters, neuter plurals. Onta, onton, usi, onta. So the present active participles of aimi, remember, are first, third declension. The stem is on, usa, on. With that masculine neuter stem having a tau in there. Now let's move on to our normal verbs, like luo. And to decline luo in the present active participle is very easy if you have aimi memorized. Because all you're going to do is you're going to take these forms of aimi and you're going to attach them onto the present stem. So take a look. Luo, masculine, feminine, neuter. There's luon, luusa, luon. If we look back at our on, usa, on, in our participles of aimi, and there's our present active participle of luo, luon, luusa, luon. Now let's take a look at that feminine. Does this follow? Luusa, luuses, luuse, luusan, luusai, luuson, luusais, luusas. Perfectly regular, perfectly normal. We just need to know that we've added on the participle of aimi. And the accent is recessive. And in the masculine, luon, there's our own, and then we go back to our stem ontos. There's our ont. Onti, onta, so luontos, luonti, luonta, luontes, luonton, luusin. Be careful with this one because it looks like the third plural active indicative, but it's also there in the participle form. And luonte, luontas. And in the neuter, luon, and this accent here is because this is a long upsilon, and a short omicron. Luon, luontos, luonti, luon, luonta, luonton, luusin, luonta. So all we need to do is take that present stem and add the forms of ame, the participle forms of ame on there. And that's why I want you to make sure you have that ame, the forms of ame, the present participle forms of ame memorized. Everything else becomes easy from that point out. Now, contract verbs. We're still going to do the same thing. We're going to take our stem, poia, and add our forms of our participle forms of ame, and then contract. So instead of poieon, this becomes poion, the circumflex, because the accent stays there. But in the genitive, ontos, when we contract that, it becomes poiuntos. Same rules of contraction. And if you look at these forms, almost all of them are an epsilon joined with an omicron or an omicron upsilon. So what you're going to end up doing is, and remember when an omicron, an epsilon contracts with an omicron, you get u. And when an epsilon contracts with an omicron upsilon, you also get u. So most of these forms, with the exception of the masculine nominative singular, are going to have un, but the endings are going to be just the same as you've had for all other participles. Now, de lao, again, if we take a look at that same thing, we get de la on, contract this, and we get de lon. But the rest of them, we get a de la with an omicron, and that's going to render us de luntos. So omicron plus omicron equals omicron upsilon, and omicron plus omicron upsilon renders us u, omicron upsilon also. So everything that we're going to see here, we're going to have normal endings and an omicron upsilon instead of just the omicron. Well, what about alpha contracts? A little different here, because remember the rule for alpha contracts. Alpha plus omega equals omega, so we're going to get nikon from nikaon, and nikaontos, all of those omicrons are going to render us nikontos, because alpha plus omicron equals omega. And the same thing here, alpha plus omicron upsilon is omicron. So alpha contracts, we're going to primarily see an omega. In fact, that's all we'll see. So that's the present active participles. Now let's move on to the present middle passives. And these are very easy. Your basic rule is going to be your stem plus omicron plus men plus first, second adjective endings. So let's see if this fits. Stem, lu, omicron, men, first, second declension endings. are masculine. So os, u, o, on, oi, on, ois, us. And in all of these we have our stem, omicron, men, and ending. In the feminine, stem, omicron, men, but feminine, first declension ending. And in the neuter, same thing. Let's take a look at the plural here. Stem, omicron, men, ending. Alpha because it's neuter plural. Very easy. Let's look at those contracts now. So, present, middle, and passive participles are first, second declension adjectives. Now, in the present, middle, passive of poieo, we're going to have poie plus omicron plus men plus our endings, and this is going to change. What happens when we contract epsilon and omicron? Poiumenos, poiumene, poiumenon, with this matching the noun it's modifying and gender, number, and case. And again, same thing, we would accent recessively, and the accent would stay there. In many cases, it shifts forward. Let's take a look at omicron contracts. De lao. We've got de la plus omicron plus men plus our endings, menos, mene, menon. What happens when we contract omicron and omicron? De luminos. And we have that one last contract, the alpha contract. Nika plus omicron plus men plus our endings. What happens when you contract an alpha and an omicron? Nikomenos. And the nice thing about contracts of middle and passive participles is that this omicron is in every form. So this is always contracting with the stem vowel, so the contraction will be consistent throughout. That's all there is to forming and declining present participles. So key to remember is adding that participle of emi, on, usa, on to the stem, or adding omenos to the stem for the middle and passive.